What's up, everyone? How's everyone doing? Allow me to put all our social medias out first, guys, before we get going. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. Got championship weekend, Mars.
Yeah, it's we're ready to roll, man. This is obviously the culmination of everything we've been waiting for, and I think this is kind of like probably the best week of the year when it comes to the Section One football. Finally, get to see who's the top dog and who's not the top dog.
Yeah, exactly. Just give us a few moments, guys. We're going to give people a couple minutes to filter in. Hope everyone's doing well. And while everyone's filtering in, I'm going to be just posting onto our social medias just to make sure everyone's aware. Um, so just give me a few moments. We have 5 games this weekend, starting Friday at Arlington, um, which is the host for the section title games this year. Um, expect a nice long walk from the parking lot to
the
to the field, though.
longest walk of the year.
Yeah, it's gonna be the longest walk of the year too. So that's funny. Um, all right, guys, we're just about done. See people slowly starting to come in, and we'll get started. We actually have a full slate. We got 5 games to talk about, but we also going to be doing some film work, similar to what we did last, a little bit more in depth this time around. Um, it will be slightly delayed just because of uh, the streaming, where we're seeing it slightly faster than you guys probably are. But we'll make it work the best we can, and we'll just showcase the different teams. So let's dive into it, Mars. All the social media stuff is done. I want to welcome you guys, as always, to our Section 1 championship preview. This is our last show of the season, Mars. So this is the big weekend here. We covered up to the Section 1 championship. Obviously, some Section 1 teams are going to be going to the state tournament. But this is going to be our last live show for the year. So a little bit bittersweet. Had a lot of fun this season. But don't fret, to our fans who are Patreon fans or fans that watch us every week, is we are going to do some postseason coverage, which is some season awards, and hopefully do some all-star teams this year. So our Patreon community is actually going to get some input on that. So if you are a Patreon member, which you can get in the description below, we always appreciate you guys. Donating to our cause has been really important for us to try to grow. And we really do appreciate you guys. But with that said, I do want to also give a congratulations to our teams of the week. We're rocking some of the gear. So we have Bronxville as one of our teams of the week, which I'm rocking their shirt. Mars has the Harrison hat this week. Mars, show that H over there. There you
Got
go.
the
There's the
got
Harrison
the H
hat.
going.
And 2 huge victories for them. Harrison had the comeback victory and then holding off Yorktown and Bronxville with a pretty big upset against Dobbs Ferry. So that's that. And the last thing I am going to say is feedback, and we do find that to be very important before we dive into the games. Is feedback. I know for our Patreon community, I asked for feedback on ways we can improve our content, things that might be interesting for you guys to add going forward. So really do appreciate if you guys can give us feedback. We can't do everything, like I wish we could do everything, but things that are feasible, we'll definitely take into consideration. But Mars, let's dive into the games. And we'll go in the order in which they're being played. So Friday at 3 p.m., which is tomorrow, you have Tuco at Haldane. And then Friday night is the A game, Harrison at Somers, or it's a neutral site. But again, the top seed is supposed to be home. On Saturday, we have the C matchup, Bronxville and Westlake at 12 p.m. We have then the B matchup, Rye and Pleasantville at 3 p.m. And then we have Carmel and Arlington at 6 p.m. on Saturday. So those are the games. Lars, let's dive into the first one, which is the D matchup, big rivalry game that we see every year, and that is Tuckahoe 4-3 at Haldane, who's 6-2. And this is a rematch of their September 22nd game where Haldane won 21-13, which ended up being a pretty darn good game for those that got to watch it. But overall, in the last 29 meetings, Lars, Tuckahoe is 23-5-1. And so Tuco has owned this series, but Haldane got the victory here. Can they do it 2 straight times to win a section title is the big question. But I want to start with Tuco. And when you look at their offense, Mars, their offense is very strong. They have now had 4 straight games where they've scored 27 plus points. 3 out of the last 4 games, they have scored 30 plus points. And it all starts with their quarterback, Nicola Chico. And he's had a tremendous season. 1,620 yards passing, 19 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's also their leading rusher with 366 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns. So he's accumulated almost 2,000 yards and 24 touchdowns. Now, the big thing is this offensive line, because they pass a lot, it puts a lot on this offensive line to do a really good job in pass protection, and it's going to be very important in this one against Haldane. And they gave up, 1 sack, I think, versus Haldane the last time they played them. So they did a pretty good job at protecting the quarterback last time, but they did have 2 fumbles. So turnovers are going to be key for this offense. When this offense gets the ball, they can score because they got some studs. Obviously, at the quarterback spot, this offensive line has done a pretty good job in pass pro. And these wide receivers are absolute matchup nightmares for people. And that's Connor Benke, who has 44 receptions, 593 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Mars Snyder with 503 yards receiving and 7 touchdowns. I mean, they're combined for over 1,000 yards receiving between the two, which is pretty crazy. And then you have Bryce, who had a strong game against Haldane last time. He had 5 receiving touchdowns on the season. And even Liberati, number 12, they use in the slot. They motion him around. He's number third on the team in reception. So, they have a bunch of receivers who makes it difficult for secondaries to guard, and that's what they really push themselves on. Now, defensively, they've also had some struggles. 5 straight games, Mark, they've allowed 20-plus points, and they've given up some big plays. But they've also had 10 sacks this season and 21 turnovers forced. So that's a big thing that this defense does do, is give their offense extra possessions. Last time they played Haldane, Mars, they gave up 362 yards rushing. So that can't happen this time around if they're planning on winning this game. They have to do a much better job of defending the run. And that's what guys like Bartolini, who's been leading the way, a big 52, 47 tackles and 3 sacks. You also have a Gardier, who leads the team in tackles at 65. And guys like Benke and Colachico. If they can slow down the run and force Haldane to be more of a passing team than they want to be, they can make some plays and force some turnovers. I'll also talk about Haldane, Mars, and then you'll dive in and kind of what each team needs to do. But Haldane, they're also very predicated on the run. It's very important to them. We talked about them for multiple weeks now. And you saw against Tuco last time, again, rushing for over 300 yards is dominating in the trenches and dominating running the football. But they did have 2 turnovers and a blocked field goal. So Haldane was able to run the ball, but things kept close because they also turned the ball over. And Giancinta has over 900 yards rushing and 8 touchdowns. He has really been sensational. Big, physical, powerful running back. And their quarterback, Ryan Van Tassel, who also has over 500 yards rushing and 6 touchdowns. Now, he completes 55% of his passes. He likes to take some deep shots. So that's something to keep an eye on. But running the football is the number one thing. So look at this offensive line, Mars. They got to open up holes. They dominated this matchup last time they played with over 300 yards rushing. That's going to be the emphasis on trying to win this football game. And also keeping the ball out of Tuco's hand. If you can run the ball and churn up yards, keeping Tuco's offense on the sideline is going to be very important. And that'll open up things for guys like Murray, their wide receiver, who's their leading wide receiver. And their running back, Williams, has also made some nice plays their last game as well. They had over 100 yards. Defensively, 5 out of 8 games, they've allowed less than 20 points. So this defense has had some strong moments, but had some moments where they struggle. But this is going to be a huge day for the secondary, Mars, against these wide receivers. I thought they were really good last time they played Tuco. They were really strong against some of these guys. Corliss, number 21, he has leading the team with 3 INTs. Now, defensively, they don't get a lot of sacks. They have 5 total sacks this season. They're going to have to generate more pressure on Tuco's quarterback. And look for guys like Stubfield, who's been tremendous at the linebacker spot, leads the team at 62 tackles. Stickles, another one who's made a lot of plays for this defense. And then you obviously have Giancinta. But Mars, talk a little bit about both teams. What do you think each team, needs to do to win this game? And then we'll dive a little bit of tape.
I mean, Tuco obviously is going to be looking to try to emphasize a good kind of push up front to get them kind of a lot more kind of breathing room to open up some lanes for the run game, because you obviously have Calichico, which was basically kind of a very good dual threat, but he's been kind of dominating, especially in when passing, because I feel like he's just been 1,600 yards passing the ball this season, and he's obviously a leading rusher as well. So he's just an overall weapon that is really hard to kind of narrow or kind of contain. So this offensive line really needs to step it up, because if they can really give him some room to work, then he can make some big plays to really get them really moving on the offensive, to really get the Haldane's defense on their heels. And that's going to be one of the most difficult people to stop for Tuco overall. But I like how what you said about the kind of wide receivers are kind of creating a lot of winnable matchups overall, I think. But when I'm looking at Haldane, I think it's kind of like in that mixed bag of, not only does their guys up front have to step up to really slow down the run for Tuco, or even just get to the quarterback to get some pressure. I think it's really going to be from the other side of the offensive line side that, it's almost like their goal is to develop the run on their end to at least own the time of possession. You need to kind of slow down the game to your benefit, because if you do, then you're going to kind of just ground and pound to the point where it's going to really tire out Tuco, so that it'll be in Haldane's hands the most of the game. You really want to slow down the pacing, but really drain the clock. I think that's kind of you want to keep Tuco's defense out on the field and really tire them out. That would be what I would look for if I was from Haldane and Tuco's perspective. So I think it's going to be a battle of the hogs up front, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely, Mars. And if you could pull up our tape, play number 5, and I'm going to be showing, Tuco's offense and Haldane's defense. And in the chat, guys, yeah, don't worry, we'll give you a few moments to pull it up. And guys in the chat, if you're in there, tell us who you think is going to win this matchup, and we'll get to our picks at the end after the film session. But I kind of wanted to give you a little glimpse of both teams.
So 5, correct?
Yes, play 5. All right. And the first one is Tuco's offense. And you can see on this one that they're running a 2x2 set in this play. And we'll only go through it once because we have quite a few plays. And you're going to see, if you're going to play man coverage against Tuco, you got to do a pretty solid job of, number one, being able to run with these stud wide receivers. And the second thing, kind of disguise where your safeties are. You see the safeties cheating over already to one side. So if you show it right away, a great quarterback like Colichico, he can kind of dissect you. And you're going to see kind of the play route combination, 2 goes and the stops. And he sees the safety cheating right there, and he knows where the window to go, which is on the opposite end on that go route on the far side. And so when he lets it go, look at the touch. When he has protection like this, he can really sling it, and that's like easy money right there. But you're talking like a 40-yard throw, making that look really easy. But it just starts off with, hey, diagnosing simple coverage, right? Man coverage, knowing where the safety's leaning, and then attacking it. When you go to that next play that Mars just pulled up, you can see, again, 2x2, but this time the receivers are stacked on the left side. You can see that right there. And they also got some stud receivers. So even when they kind of throw these 50-50 balls, and you can see these DBs are playing a bit of a zone here with a jam on the far side, and on the bottom here, they're in man. They're going to be doing kind of a corner and post. And so you can see the safety's actually in pretty good position when Mars plays this to make a play on the ball. And he's going to throw it anyway. There's pressure coming. Safety's in pretty solid position, but they got some studs. I mentioned about Benke, Snyder, Bryce. And look at him go up there and just snag that. This is those 50-50 balls we call where my guy's going to make a play over yours. And Tuco can do that. You got some really good quarterback play with reading coverages, and also guys who can win 50-50 matchups. And when we go to the final play here, this is actually against Haldane. I could see Tuco doing a little bit more of this action, which is getting the quarterback to move the pocket and try to flood potential zones or man coverage. And you can see here, a lot of this offense is also looking towards the sideline, getting checks, adjusting the play. And so Haldane's got to do a good job of trying to mask some of the things that they're doing. But you can see the route combination. They're going to motion, try to flood the zone with a quick out, deep out, and a go route, and the quarterback's going to be on the move. And because of his ability to run, Mars, you have to get a guy to pretty much spy. And so you're going to see here, you got some man coverage going right here, and you're going to get a nice little jam by that edge defender, and he's going to play the spy here for a quarterback that scrambles, right? So because of that threat of running, you lose a defender in coverage, and now he's going to read, right? Where does this ball go? Now, he could throw it really quickly right now to that short out, but he's going to go with a deeper out, right? Because it starts to open up. So he delivers on that, the deep out right there. makes a nice little move to the outside, and that leads to a long play. And I could see Tuco and Mars kind of doing a little bit more of, getting the quarterback on the move, try to flood some of this man coverage stuff. And on this time around, I'm going to be looking at Haldane, because last time they played them, I thought the secondary did a very good job. And this is a 2-eye safety look, right? So you can see Tuco's in a, again, 2x2 spread look. And when you have 2-eye safeties, you're really putting an emphasis on your secondary to try to make plays. And these two flat guys, one of them is going to be rushing after a jam, like kind of a late rush. The other one's going to be jamming and dropping. So this kind of disguise stuff can be pretty good to confuse a quarterback. It looks the same on both sides, but it's actually slightly different. Now, these linebackers are going to bail out into hook to curl zones. You have to be a little bit careful here because he can run, Mars, right? So if you just bail out like they do, they take away their routes. So he takes away that initial throw. You see, he wanted to probably throw to the inside there, but now it wasn't there. Pretty good coverage, so he's going to try to take off, and that's where this defensive line has to really step up. When you take away that first read, you got to get to the quarterback. They do on this one. Let's go to the next one, Mars. And again, so Haldane, they'll give you 2 high safety looks. Now they're in trips, so you can't really give it 2 high safety. Now they bring that other safety down into the box. You can see on the bottom. So Tuco's going to try to, again, out-leverage them. They want to motion this number 3 receiver across, and he's going to run a go route. You can see on the bottom, they're playing some press man here. But when he motions, that's kind of going to be a nice indicator on what kind of coverage they're going to be. So you can see he's going to be motioning across, Mars. Look at the safety follow him. And so now the other flat guy is actually going to be coming off the edge. And this flat guy towards the near side where the motion is, right? So he's going to be kind of playing the spy. He's going to jam up and play the spy. And now you have man coverage on the top. And so they're running that post up there. Quarterback sees the safety bailing. He's going to that post. So you need a secondary guys who can run with these receivers. And look at him make that play on the ball, Mars. Look at him knock that away. Good trail position. Really good job of knocking that ball away. All right, on to the last one. And again, this is another really important thing is defending the quarterback on scramble drill. Right, so you can see again, Tuco checking to the sideline. You see Haldane adjusting, which I love. Defense has got to be able to adjust when offenses are moving. And now let's look what the defense is doing. Right, so they're in an empty look, 5 wide receivers. 2 on the near side right here, they're playing in man. And on the far side, they have the 2 guys playing man with the safety over the top. And you're curious on what that number 3 defender out in the flat is doing. He's actually going to jam again that number 3 receiver, and he's actually going to play a quarterback spy because the quarterback can run. And these 2 linebackers are going to drop and hook the curls. So you're going to see as this play develops here, again, you want to take away his first read. Here's the route combination. You're going to see, again, you got some hooks, you got some posts or crossers, deep crossers here. And the quarterback's going to try to diagnose on where they can win that one-on-one matchup. And you're playing a lot of man here. So you need these DBs who are going to be able to run with these receivers. And you can watch here, this is pretty good coverage. As the play gets going, you see pretty darn good coverage. See it as it keeps going, a little bit delayed. And because that number 3 receiver went into the linebacker, the safety does a good job of getting over the top there. And so as that guy scrambles around and he tries to throw it short, DB does a good job of jumping that route. See that right there, Mars? Any comments on everything I've kind of described? Pretty good diving into both sides right there.
No, man, I feel like overall when we're thinking about just how disciplined you need to be, especially in your coverages, I feel like that's really what sets the difference between, a secondary, especially with these well-developing routes and how you guys kind of, how they react to some of these combinations. I feel like that's going to be really the thing that separates a secondary that can lock down a lot of these different things that can be thrown at them or not. And I feel like you see from both sides, they have some really great stuff that we're going to see. And I think there's going to be, obviously, it's a rivalry game. We're going to see a section final here. It's going to be a battle. It's going to be about who actually kind of steps up and does their job the best, right, compared to the 2. And whoever just plays as disciplined as possible is really going to have that edge. So I think both sides have a lot of good things here.
All right, Mars, I did a poll with our Patreon group. 75% have Haldane winning this game. Mars, who do you have?
Now, this was definitely an interesting one for me, and the fact that you have a rivalry game, the fact that you play each other multiple times, like you're going to play each other again and not only just the regular season, but again in the section final. A lot of times, everything's pointing to you that the team that lost the last time usually pulls off the win the second time. But I'm going to go with Haldane. I think Haldane is going to have the advantage here. I think they have some confidence behind them, and I think that they're going to start to kind of, like I said before, win up front and use the run game to really drain the clock and just kind of own the line of scrimmage. Not saying that it's going to be a blowout or anything, because I think it's going to be a very close game. I just think that Haldane is going to kind of own the time possession, and at the end of the game, it's going to be one of those fast games because of how much running is going to be done here. But I just feel like Haldane just has more of that advantage with how well their running game has been producing all season long, and I feel like that's going to be what is going to set them apart here. I'm going to go with Haldane.
The last time Haldane has won 2 straight versus Tuco, Mars, hasn't happened in over 20 years. So huge opportunity here. I'm also going to go with Haldane. I think Tuco's offense is very potent. The question I have is defensively, can they stop the run? That hasn't been consistent enough. If Haldane can protect the football, I think they're going to be able to move the ball and churn up some clock. I'm going with Haldane. Welcome, Jay McBuckets. Pleasantville or Rye? Oh, don't worry. We'll be getting to that game. We got a nice one. But we got to go to the A matchup. We're going into the order in which they're played. This is the Friday night game, Mars. Harrison at Somers. And this is a rematch of their September 29th matchup where Somers won 21-0. And for Harrison, Mars, first section title appearance in 13 years. Last time was 2010. And for Somers, they reached their 3rd straight section title appearance. I believe on my research last week, it is their first time ever, at least dating back to when Max Preps first started. So maybe some Somers alum can tell me. But it's the first time it's happened in a very long time, is what I can tell you there. And with the history and coaching that has gone through there, that's pretty wild to think about that. But let's start with Harrison. They had a tremendous comeback victory versus Yorktown last week, Mars. They were down 21-10 and clawed their way back into the game. And let's start offensively on, how this offense is built and what they can do to try to win this. And it's obviously predicated on the running game. And that is both in the spread, they like to run the football, and especially this double slot option offense, which you saw was a huge spark for them against Yorktown last week. This offensive line was very physical against Yorktown. They're going to have to do that again against a bigger defensive front than what they saw last week, Mars. They did rush for 165 yards, but this is going to be a step up in trying to run the ball against a physical unit. And it's going to start with running backs with Barcella, Krupe, and kind of their spark plug, which he'll run the ball as a halfback and as quarterback in Lanza, who was another big-time player for them last week. Made some huge plays at the quarterback spot, running some option and some. They've run some spread read stuff with him and him as a halfback. But then you look at the passing game, Mars, because I think we both agree. I don't think Harrison's just going to run down Somers, because teams haven't really been able to do that. They're going to have to make some plays in the passing game. And last week, they didn't pass for a whole lot. They did have a touchdown pass, which was a huge spark to McClellan, but it was some even interferences, right? So just the attacking downfield and drawing interferences in man coverage, which also counts pretty much as long completions, 15-yard completions. So they're going to have to be efficient in the passing game. And I do think, again, throwing outside the numbers against Somers is pretty difficult unless you have a very clean pocket. But some of the in-breaking routes, right, put the linebackers and safeties in turmoil. And at some point, Somers will go into man coverage, right? So you got to have some man beaters. You got to win those one-on-one matchups. And a guy like McLaughlin is going to have to be big for them. He was tremendous last week. He's going to have to be a superstar in this game. The one thing you can't do, Mars, last time they played Somers, 3 INTs for Harrison. If they turn the ball over like that, they don't have a chance of winning this game. Defensively, when you're trying to pull off the upset, winning the turnover battle is key for Harrison's defense. They forced 2 turnovers last week. They won the turnover battle, and they had the interception at the end of the game. They also had that fumble recovery. This defense also had 3 sacks. This has been a very strong defensive unit, and the big thing in this one is trying to generate some negative plays. They can generate some negative plays, especially in the run game with this defensive line and Lee Damage, Santarelli, Nicolaj, these Harrison linebackers. They can, and I talked about it last week, winning in light boxes or even boxes which is, winning those one-on-one matchups and generating some negative plays. Get them into second, third, and long, and see if the secondary, who I thought had a very good game last week, Mars, and Krupe, McLaughlin, Lanza, keeping everything in front of them. They did a good job of keeping all the pass plays in front of them for the most part. I know they had a Hail Mary in the end of the first half, but keeping plays in front of them, coming up and tackling, which was a big thing, which they struggled with against Somers the first time. But tackling on the edge is going to be huge. They gave up some big pass plays and really on just some short stuff that they missed tackles on. That's what Harrison's got to be much better at. When we get to Somers, Mars, they won 35-14 last week versus Eastchester. And offensively, they had a very tough time running the ball versus Harrison. They had 78 yards total, which was a season low, Mars. 2.4 yards per carry versus this Harrison front. So look for this offensive line to try to bounce back. But Somers did some smart things versus Harrison, which is use the quick passing game and the RPO game to act as like an extension of the run. And I'm anticipating to use that again. They got to test the secondary if they're going to come up and tackle in space. And it obviously starts with their quarterback in Max Sullivan. Over 1,500 yards passing. He's completing 65% of his passes, Mars. I think it was 16 of 17 he was versus Harrison last time, Mars. Ridiculous completion percentage. 19 touchdowns. He also has rushed for 359 yards and 8 touchdowns, so 27 total touchdowns for Mac. But the big thing, Mars, turnovers. 12 INTs this year. They had a couple last week. And 14 turnovers on the season. So Somers, as strong and powerful as they are, the turnover bug at times has been a bit ugly for this offense. And obviously they're going to have to stay potent with the rush attack. And Kelly, who's been tremendous, he has 894 yards and 15 touchdowns running the ball with him to keep this team honest. But look for them to use that passing game as an extension. And one guy in particular, Palazzolo, that young wide receiver that they used to him on RPO action and screen games. He has over 800 yards receiving and 10 touchdowns. And we've seen guys like Kapika and Iglesias also make plays in this passing offense. For looking for them to do some quick stuff, kind of, and then extension down the field when they get into some more protection and max protection. Defensively, number one is to stop the run, Mars, especially the option. The option really tests your responsibility football in your eyes. So that's going to be a big thing for Somers. And Coach, when I spoke to him about this game, that was an emphasis, is stopping this double wing, double slot option game. But you guys get, and that's a predicate on your front seven. Joffrey, Newman. This defense has had 8 sacks. We also have seen big plays from Kreco, Cole. Conti's also been big. But this defense, Mars, has forced 15 turnovers. And the last time they played Harrison, they forced 3 INTs because they got them into second and third and long. That's going to be the big thing. Mars, thoughts on these two teams before we dive into their team?
I mean, the fact that when I'm looking at both like Harrison and Somers, I feel like they have some pretty sizable matchups. And I know that Somers had kind of won the game, and and it was obviously more of a easier win for Somers, being a 21-0 victory. But when I say easy, I mean more like the scoreboard was more in their favor. I didn't think that they were able to just do whatever they wanted against Harrison because of the way that the Harrison's front has been a lot more physical against them. And I feel like when I'm looking at this game, Harrison needs to kind of bring that back. They need to have more of a chip on their shoulder, and they need to have that intensity like they had against Yorktown. I feel like their front has the physical size to match with some guys from Somers, but the issue is going to be about the duration, right? I mean, you think about the size of teams, right? The amount of kids on a team for both sides. I mean, it's going to have to be that Harrison makes some big plays to really get ahead, right? They need to create some negative plays for Somers on the defensive end, but they need to make some big plays on offense to really get ahead of the game, especially at halftime, to really give them some more energy and some more life. And I feel like that when you look at Somers has obviously been the most well-rounded team this year for A. And I feel like the issue that they could have is, like you said, the turnover differential is obviously a struggle for them. Like, they've had times where they've turned the ball over and made mistakes, and lucky for them, the teams that they played against have never really capitalized on the mistakes that they've made because their defense has been very stout. And I feel like that's been able to keep them, even when they make a mistake, they can kind of bail them out with, from making something like that. So for Somers, it's just going to be about limiting the mistakes and just playing a well-rounded, all-around team effort. So both sides have a lot of good things going for them, and they both have their strategies of what they can try to pull off. It's going to be about who's more disciplined in the long run. All
right, Mars, pull up play number 1, and I'm going to show both offenses. for Harrison and for Somers, and just give you a little snippet of them, a nice little preview. So as that loads up, guys, yeah, there we go. All right, so Mars going to be playing it as I go through, and it's a little bit blurry, so just mind it. Want to try to get it working at the same time. But first thing first is this Harrison offense. They like to run the ball. That's obviously a key part of their game, and they'll run it out of the spread and out of running double, the double slot option. And this first one is spread here, and you're going to see they're going to be running a zone read pretty much. And even when they kind of don't run the option exactly well, they have the athletes that they can make you pay. So you can see a bunch of zone steps up front on this offensive line. And the quarterback, who this time is Lanza, it's kind of a spark plug for them. He's going to be reading the end man on the line of scrimmage, which is highlighted there. And when he crashes down, he's supposed to pull it. But when he sits like that, Mars, you're supposed to give. But Lanza actually doesn't give here. He actually pulls it himself. But he's going to show why he's a very good athlete and makes people miss. So you see the DN, this looks like a muffed up play that he made. But watch that. Look at him put his foot in the dirt right there, and he's going to make a D lineman in space look silly. Right? So he's going to make a real nice juke here. And once he gets to that second level, look at the physicality of the line really wall off everyone. He gets that second level practically untouched, and now that's him bowling his way into the end zone. So they're going to run out of the spread, and they're also going to be running in, this is what I emphasize, that coach has emphasized, is kind of the double wing option or double slot option. Right? You can see 2 wide receivers, 2 slots, and they're going to run the option here, which could be 3 different players pretty much running the ball. I'm interested to see, Mars, if Harrison does some fake motion, because a lot of it's predicated motion. Do they do some whirly motion, which is he starts motioning and then goes back in this game? But this is just a normal motion, and when you hike the ball, he can hand it to the fullback, he can keep it, or he can pitch it. And so as this play goes on, you're going to see the first read is that unblocked defensive lineman. But I want you to also emphasize and look at this linebacker who has the arrow on him as well. Look at where their eyes are. And this is what responsibility football is. You're responsible for a specific back. And if you're peeking into the backfield, that's where this offense can really make you pay. And you can see the head is kind of inside because someone's got to be responsible for the quarterback. Someone's got to be responsible for the pitch man. So as this play goes, he does a good job of pulling that fake right there. And you can see linebackers up on the quarterback, but who's on the wing? Right? Because the outside linebacker stepped inside, now he gets walled off. And there's the highlight right there. Now the pitch happens. Really good blocking out on the edge. And he's going to be off to the races. They really try to, again, because they do spread stuff and then they're going to throw option, which back in the day, Mars used to be pretty big, but not so big anymore. Now, a big thing that has got to be emphasized in this game, and this is Harrison versus Somers early in the year, is throwing the football. And I apologize for the banner up top. Couldn't really remove it. But they have this stud, McLaughlin, who's I show as an arrow up there. And whenever he's out as a wide receiver, you're normally going to have 2 defenders in that direction. You can see there's a corner in his face and a safety over the top. And when that happens, sometimes it's tough. Harrison tries to force the ball, which sometimes has led to interceptions, especially versus Somers last time. You got to attack away from him at times. And I'm not saying don't go to him because you need to, but in moments like this, look down at the trips. So they're going to be running these routes right here, a slant, a deeper slant, or an in-breaking route, and then a post on the far end. And you got to be able to read this coverage and see how these linebackers break. It's going to be very important. So as the ball gets snapped, you can see the linebacker, the first slant, the other linebacker sees it, but that's the linebacker nearest to us. He's going to take a wide open, right? So as this play runs, you're going to get a jam here on the number 2 receiver, but it's going to open up because of how the linebacker took a poor angle, right? Takes a poor angle there. There's the window. Quarterback reads it, delivers it with confidence, and these are the kind of plays you're going to have to make. Catch the ball, get into space, create a chunk play. I'm not anticipating Harrison to have, again, 25-plus passes. If they do, they're going to lose this game. But they have to make big hits in the passing game, Mars. Now I'm going to go to Somers. And I mentioned it before. Somers had a tough time running the football. They're definitely going to have to run the ball better, this time around. But I love the way they use the quick passing game as an extension of the run. This is an example. They're going to be faking a power play here with the guard pulling. and they're going to be throwing it to the number 2 receiver towards the trips. And you're going to see Harrison's trying to bring some pressure off the edge, and you got to challenge Harrison for them to run and tackle in space with some of the athletes you have. And one of these is Palazzolo, that number 2 receiver. So they're going to show a strong run here, get the linebackers and this edge guy attacking the line of scrimmage, and then throw it out quickly into space. And now you have this guy he's been tremendous in open space, a lot of speed versus some of these DBs, and that's a tough trick. Right now, you would love a little bit better block from those 2 other guys, but getting some space, forcing these DBs that have to run up and tackle, right? This is a nice extension of the run to get towards the outside. Another thing Somers can do is to move the pocket. And in this play right here, there's another example that they did against Harrison. They got trips to this side. Quarterback's going to be rolling towards the trips. And so you want to, again, see how they defend the edge, make sure these D linemen get out to the outside and attack kind of the flat defender or whoever is going to be guarding the flats, and see how these guys play coverage. So you can see the route combination. He starts moving that way towards the 3 receiver side. And you're going to see that the corner is going to be highlighted here. That's because he's playing zone. And he's got to decide, is he going to stop the corner route or the deep out? Right? And he's kind of stuck in between. So Mac does a good job of reading this, throwing it to that quick out because he's a little bit deeper the corner. And that leaves things open. He makes the catch, makes a guy miss because, again, you want to force these Harrison DBs who they tackled well last week. But can they do it again? Finally, Mars, probably my favorite play is this last one in that Somers-Harrison game. And this was a deeper throw from their quarterback, Mac. And you can see when you get these deeper throws, you got to have good protection. And against this Harrison defense, it's tough because they got some dudes up front. But Mac shows a lot of toughness. He had a really strong game in this one. This is probably my favorite throw. You can see the route combination here. He's actually going to be throwing to that deep in breaking route by the number 1 receiver. But this takes time. Harrison does a good job of dropping its coverage. You can see the defensive tackle is about to hit him. But I love the way he stands in the pocket here with confidence and delivers an absolute strike. Boom. Takes a big shot right in the gut. But look at him deliver that ball right there. And it's a really strong route. And these are those kind of deeper concepts that Somers can also take advantage. Because Harrison's so strong against the run, you got to loosen them up with the passing game. Mars, that was the last one play I had for this group. But let's get to the game pick, Mars. And when I ran the poll with our Patreon community, again, it's not a huge number poll, but 57% has Somers winning this game. Mars, who do you got winning?
I mean, this is definitely, it's same thing like I said before. I mean, when you have a team that plays multiple times in one season, it's always a lot harder to beat them a second time because you've already got a lot of game plan, a lot of film on that team that you played. Now, what is going well for Somers is the fact that they've been in these tight games before. They've been in section title games before. These kids have experienced that high intensity, high level of play you need to get to win the game. And on top of that, they've been all around, like I said, the most well-rounded team all season. Both offense and defense has been performing very well, and their run game has been impressive, but they've had a great play action game, a lot of very good passing going on as well. So a lot of good things for Somers, and especially defensively, they've been playing really well. Harrison has kind of that mojo, that luck that's on their side, where they don't have the biggest populated. Not saying luck, I'm saying luck as in like they have some the mojo's going for them, as in they're on comebacks. You know, they don't have the most populated team compared to a lot of other teams that they played, but they always are tough and they're battling against every team that they play against, even in the tough games, and then they obviously win in these games where a lot of people picked against them. So overall, when I'm looking at this matchup, I'm going to go with Somers. I think Somers has, the more balanced team. I think it's going to be a lot closer than it was last time. I think that Harrison's going to give everything they've got, and it's going to come down to maybe a 1-touchdown game. I think Somers is going to win. I don't want to give a score because it's always hard to predict scores in high school. But I think it's going to be a touchdown away, and I think Somers is going to win the game because I think they're going to have more of that. I think it's going to be closer at halftime, and they're going to pull away into that late third quarter, fourth quarter is really where Somers is. That's like the magic quarters for them. Yeah. So I feel like Somers is going to win that game in that later part of the game.
Well, that's what happened last game, right? It was 7-0 for a long period of time. until the turnovers really hurt Harrison. And I got to say this, I think Harrison's going to be in this game. I think this is going to be a very close game because Harrison is really driven on their defense. And when you play really strong defense, you have a chance. The question I have is they made some huge plays in the passing game last week. Can they do that again this time around? And the option. So those were two things that were huge for them. Harrison really controlled the line of scrimmage in the second half. And can they do that again this time around? I think that it will be an absolute battle in this one. And if Somers turns the ball over and Harrison wins the turnover battle, don't be surprised if you see the upset. But I am going to go with Somers. And similar to what you said last time, Mars, 13 years since Harrison has been in this game. Harrison's had some gritty, absolute tough performances, comeback performances. They never give in, and they are a pure example, which they're another really fun group that I like watching, is quality over quantity. We talk about all these giant teams, but the guys that they put out there give everything they have, and that's something that you can absolutely respect for them. But I go with Somers because they have been there and done that. And yeah, streaks always have to come to an end at some point, but I don't think it happens this time around, and I'm going to go with Somers. All right, Mars, let's go to the next game, and it's our C matchup as we're getting into Saturday. Bronxville 4-4 at Westlake, that is 8-0. And this is a rematch of their October 28th game where Westlake won 21-8. And Westlake is 8-2 versus Bronxville over their last 10 matchups. And I want to start with Bronxville, Mars. They had their huge victory versus Dobbs Ferry, and that's why I'm rocking the Bronxville shirt. They're one of our teams of the week. 27-6 versus Dobbs Ferry, Mars, and they have won 3 of their last 4 games. This is a team that started 1-3, had a lot of injuries that happened to them, but they have really played some good football these last 4 weeks, for the most of these last 4 weeks. And offensively, they have scored 27-plus points 4 out of the last 5 games. And this is another offense that's predicated on running the football. And that's with guys with this big physical offensive line and their running backs in Patterson and Fermato, who have both been very good. And Fermato, he had over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. He was a big-time player for them on both sides of the ball, which then just opens up some play-action opportunities for their quarterback, Kenny. Now, the last time they played Westlake, Mars, they got down 21-0 really early, and then it was a stalemate in the second half. And it was really really pushed by the 3 turnovers they had. That can't happen. If you're going to pull the upset off, you cannot turn the ball over like they did last time. Now, defensively, it's going to be huge on stopping big plays in the running game, especially off tackle and to the edge, because that's what Westlake really drives on. And against Bronxville in particular, the play-action pass was something that was something that hurt them. And their defensive end in Micon is going to be so important to try to get some penetration, generating some negative plays to get Westlake in the type of offense that they don't want to necessarily be, which is in second and third and long. Now, when they're in second medium, second and short, that's where this offense is very deadly, and they like to attack the edges. So these edge guys are going to be so important. 4 of the last 6 games, Mars, less than 20 points allowed. So this is a team that has been vastly improved on both sides of the ball. Part of it's getting healthy, and part of it is young guys stepping up. As for Westlake, they won 21-6 versus Valhalla last week, back in the section title for a second straight opportunity. Offensively, it starts with the rush attack for them too, but look for them to attack off tackle those C gaps and edge attacks like they did last time. And that's where they're really, really strong in, because they have backs who can run. They do a good job of staying on blocks. And it starts with their running back in Cali, who he could be a running back for you. They went into some wildcat offense at times, him running the ball, but getting him the ball, handing it off to him, throwing it to him. He's a big-time playmaker for them, and he's made some big plays, including in the section title game last year. So look for him to be a huge part of it, but he's not alone. They got another one, DiNapoli, who's made some big plays for them. And the last couple weeks, you've seen this pass offense, which has done some good things, but really emphasize on creating some big plays with their quarterback in Pagan and guys like Castellano, who has been really, really strong for them. 2 receiving touchdowns last time versus Bronxville for Castellano. And because of their ability to run the ball, you're going to get those one-on-one matchups, and even in condensed formations where you have a single receiver, that Castellano can win those one-on-ones. So look for them to try to push that. Defensively, Mars, less than 14 points in 4 straight games. And they forced 3 turnovers against Bronxville, which really sparked them. It's this defense that has really been very consistent all season long, but really strong, less than 14 in 4 straight, like I mentioned. Last week, also, in their playoff game, 94 total yards allowed. And this is a defense that has multiple guys that can step up and make plays for you. They have forced a bunch of turnovers this year. Guys like Prosperino, Savino, Negrelli, Mealy, Zino, Lozito, and then you have Cali and Castellano who have made big plays on offense, and DiNapoli. So this is a defense that multiple guys can make big plays for you, and they have a lot of speed to them. That's what really helps. They really get after the football, and they really swarm to the ball. And the big thing is then stopping the run, right, Mars? Because if Bronxville gets into second, third, and long, that's where they don't want to be either, because they have some really strong backs. If you can slow them down and get them in uncomfortable situations, then this defense can start forcing those turnovers. Mars, thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I mean, seeing Bronxville kind of really just changing their entire landscape of their season after that 3-1 start, like you said, is definitely
1-3 start.
Oh, sorry, 1-3 start, 3-1, 1-3 start. Is definitely a very impressive thing to see how they can climb out of that and really just kind of transition into almost like a completely different team in a way. But yeah, I feel like their offense has been clicking on all cylinders. I feel like their run game has been very impressive. Their whole line has been moving bodies around, and I feel like their defense has definitely been stepping up a lot more than what a lot of people expected. And I think that when you look at Westlake, they have been really just been like very similar to what we said with like what I said with Somers. They've been a very well-balanced team this entire season. I feel like they have the ability to run the ball with Cali very well. He's been kind of showing that he's been a dominant force, for Westlake, really getting a lot of yards, just making big plays for them all season long. Well, what I think is the most impressive thing about them is their defense. Their defense has really been getting their offense so many more opportunities to score points and really just own the game. And I feel like that is really what sets them apart compared to a lot of teams. So I mean, it is really impressive to see how these two teams are going to match up, especially when we start getting that run game versus run game, who's going to get more of that advantage there. So it's going to be a very interesting matchup.
Absolutely. And Mars, we have some plays to talk about for these. I'll be looking at both these offenses. Go to play 4 for me. Look at us, man. We're like NFL Live, dude. NFL Network. We got some plays for you guys.
Got these crazy transitions.
If you guys go to, you guys can also put any questions you have in the chat, which I've got to mention earlier in the show. But I'm going to start with Bronxville, Mars. And I mentioned predicated on the run. And they have some big physical guys up front that can really move people, and even bringing in tight ends. They do a really good job of creating some lanes and moving bodies and giving these running backs opportunities to make plays in Patterson and Fermato, like I mentioned. This is the first example, right? They have a tight end wing here. This is just power football. You're going to see a couple linemen pulling on a tackle pull. We got a guard pulling backside. But the big thing is on this tight end and wing back who got a down block here and create some movement up front. And as the play runs, you're going to see a really strong job of executing. Look at a big tackle here, moving all the way across the line of scrimmage and absolutely pancaking that end guy. And you can see the movement that I was mentioning from the tight end and wing right here. Look at that, Marsh. It'll make you smile. Look at the guard whipping around, got his eyes up. He doesn't have his head down, and he gets the contact right there. And look at all these lanes, Mars. Look at all these pancakes. Look at all these guys getting sealed off. And you give a running back like Patterson this space, it's sayonara. See you later. And that's going to be a huge thing for Bronxville. Their big turnaround has been they've been blocking much better up front with their big physical line, and these running backs have really made some plays. When we get to the next play, it's another one. And they have another young back in Fermato, number 7, who he's been really good. And this is against a physical Dobbs Ferry defense. And you can see they got trips this way. They're bringing in kind of a wing back here and more power football. You can see a couple linemen pulling. Got that big boy McSherry coming around. And when you get this play going, it's all about movement at the point of attack. You got to generate that movement at the point of attack. You're going to see these linemen pulling, but look at them. Look at the good job of trapping that DN, getting his hips swung around, Marson, sealing him to the inside. And there you go right there. You got a body on a body right there. There's the seal. Look at the guard pulling around. Running back following his guard. And then here's the contact right there. There's the lane opening up. Good cut by the running back. Springs into the second. Looks really easy. But that's what Bronxville has been doing to really get their offense and their season turned around. That's why they're scoring 27-plus points is running the football. And when they can run the ball, now things open up in the passing game. And now this is an empty set, but you see they're going to be motioning one of their star backs, almost faking like they're running a jet. And because of the talent here and running the football, you're going to get the secondary peaking. And so you can see they're going to fake this jet, and they're going to be running two go patterns and an out. And watch the corner and the safety of their eyes. And I'm going to highlight it once Mars gets the play going. You can see they're looking into the backfield. Right, they're looking into the backfield, and that is just enough space you need. So now the quarterback knows where he wants to go with the ball, and now it's all about ball placement. And you can see, watch the ball placement here. Good pocket, really nice ball. Leads to a beautiful touchdown. Now I gotta go to Westlake. And Westlake is a fast team. They're fast, they run the ball also very well, and they can give you a bunch of different things. They'll give you the normal wing piece style offense. They'll also give you some of this, Wildcat, and that's Cali right there. So you can see they're going to be motioning, and they're really just trying to outflank the defense and get Cali some space. And you're going to see a lot of nice zone stepping going on here to try to stretch the defense horizontally. And as the play gets running, you can see, does a really good job. Look at everyone getting a body on a body. And when you stretch this defense out, then you give a running back like Cali an opportunity to put his foot in the dirt and get north and south when he sees a space. So really good job of blocking here. He sees a space open up, Mars, put the foot in the ground and hit the hole hard. And if Cali gets in the second level, there's not really much who's going to stop him. The next play is against Bronxville themselves. And this is that wing T style. You got a tight end, you got a wing, you got a T formation, Mars. And they're going to run off tackle runs because Bronxville's big up front, right? They got a lot of meat inside. So attacking on the C gaps and outside makes a lot of sense. But you can see a good job here down blocking by the tight end and the wing back. You're going to see a nice kick out block by the running back. And you're going to see a nice seal getting generated for guys like DiNapoli or Cali. In this instant, it's DiNapoli getting the ball. And you create a nice seal, and then you got one-on-one with him versus a D-back. And look at the seals opening up. DiNapoli going one-on-one with a D-back. Advantage Westlake. Huge chunk play. Finally, when you get these kind of condensed formations and the real serious threat of the run game, we'll leave opportunities one-on-one, and that's Castellano out there. And you can see they have an underneath defender, but look at all that space towards the sideline. Defensive back, because of the threat of him beating them deep into the end zone, is playing off. So what does Westlake do? Smartly, run a quick out. They're playing man. You can see they're man-to-man. They have a little bit of help of the inside guy. Because of that threat of the run, he's got to stay close to the line of scrimmage. They run that quick out. Hike, good ball placement is what the quarterback needs right here. As the play goes. Good ball placement, but look at this, one-on-one. It's actually not badly covered. But watch Castellano here. Look at the strength. Shake a guy, juke a guy, get into the end zone. So I'm interested to see how these two teams play each other. I think Westlake's going to be using similar concepts, Mars. But yeah, any quick thoughts before we get into the game today?
No, man, I just felt like that obviously it's really about the effectiveness of the O-line and D-line. I feel like when you look at Westlake, a lot of those plays, they're obviously very good skill players. I mean, obviously how Cali can run and make a move. But if you look at the blocking, it was spot on, creating so many lanes for Westlake and for Bronxville. Both really had I guess you would say a master class in how to stay on a block and throw your hips and really get into create these lanes for your backs to really make a move. So definitely an impressive showing for sure.
All right, Mars, we did the poll for Patreon. They have 60% think Westlake is going to win this game. Who do you got, Mars?
Yeah, see, when I was looking at this game, I mean, it's like the same thing kind of how I was looking at Harrison in a way where Bronxville obviously has really morphed their play and the way that they have been performing all season long, starting out the season really rough and then changing just their momentum to be really driving them to win, to really be pushing themselves forward and really being a lot more effective on the offense and defensive ends. And I feel like this has a lot to do with the O-line. It really has a lot to do with their mentality and being more aggressive, more physical up front. And for Westlake, it's like I said, they've been the most balanced team all season long, and they've been very impressive. Very difficult to stop them, right? Once they get going, but they've had some close games, and the question is going to be about who makes the least amount of mistakes. And I think I'm going to go with Bronxville in this game. I think Bronxville has really been hitting in stride. I think the fact that they played and now they kind of have a little bit of game plan on them, they have a little bit of film, it allows them to kind of regroup and try to figure out ways to limit these outside attack runs, in which Westlake really is trying to do, because that's basically what they were targeting them last time. And on top of that, because they have such skill, like such fast players that can hit the edge, if they can limit those big plays, then that means that Bronxville can get some plays back on offense, and they might be able to use their strength to try to muscle Westlake in a lot of ways. So I'm going to go with Bronxville here.
Yeah, I mean, Bronxville is playing at a much higher level. I mentioned all the stats that I gave you before, but I am going to go with Westlake, and the reason why is because of their defense. Their defense has been tremendous. Less than 14 points, like I mentioned, in 4 straight games. Their ability to make some big plays out on the edge. Now, without question, Bronxville has improved on both offensively and defensively, and it helps with getting healthier. But I think Westlake's experience, they were here last year, it's going to help them in this matchup. I'm going Westlake. All right, guys, 2 games left, and I know this is probably my game of the week, the B matchup. And that is Rye 8-2 at Pleasantville, who is 9-0. And this is a rematch of their September 22nd matchup, where Pleasantville won 21-12. Now let's start with Rye, Mars. This Rye looks a little bit different than what Pleasantville saw a while ago. And part of that is because they've gotten more healthier. And they were missing a bunch of starters last time they played. But it's not even just the guys that they're missing. Rye is playing much better football. They won 41-13 versus Ardsley. They have won 6 straight. And offensively, they have scored 30-plus points in 6 straight games. Now, obviously, health is a factor, but do you want to know what another factor is? The play of their quarterback, A.J. Miller. And when he played Pleasantville, Mars, he had 0 touchdown passes and 3 interceptions. And Rye as a whole had 4 turnovers in that game. But since that game, Mars, A.J. Miller has 13 touchdowns to 1 interception and completing 75% of his passes. So without question, getting back some of your weapons is what definitely helps. But his play has really exploded, and which has pushed this offense to new bounds. Now, when they did play Pleasantville, Mars, what they did find some success was running the football. They had 143 yards rushing. Some of these condensed formations where they were doing some ISO blocking, at times they were muscling Pleasantville a little bit. So I'm anticipating them to work a little bit on that as well and doing some play action out of those condensed formations. I mean, Luliano was really good in that game. He has over 700 yards rushing and 16 touchdowns. They also got Ramachandran, who's another spellback, has over 400 yards rushing. But their ability to run the ball and the play of A.J. Miller is really that balance is what has created this offense to be extremely explosive. And they have a bunch of wide receivers in Asiavati, Stevens, Kesner, who didn't play last time. Hess has made some big plays. They have the weapons who can really make big-time plays for you. But I got to say this. Pleasantville is the best defense that they're going to play. So Pleasantville's defense has made quarterbacks look not so good, even very good quarterbacks. So this is an offense that I do think has to show some balance running the football, play action out of condensed formations, and not turning the ball over. Those 4 turnovers were absolute killer in pivotal moments for Rye. That cannot happen if they want to win this game. Defensively, they've allowed 14 or less points also in 6 straight games. The big thing is obviously slowing down Picard. That's easier said than done. We've said this multiple weeks in a row. But this defense, I actually thought had a solid game plan versus Pleasantville last time, but Pleasantville won the one-on-one matchups outside of Daniel Picard, and that's the difference. This defense is going to have to set up multiple different schemes. It's Daniel Picard as a single wide receiver, have to have a scheme. Daniel Picard as a slot receiver on a 2 or 3 receiver side, has to have a different scheme. And Daniel Picard in the backfield has to have a different setup. So this Rye defense is going to have to morph based on where Daniel Picard is going. And it's going to help if they can generate some pressure, right? Because they got to bracket Daniel when he's a wide receiver. And so this defensive line and these linebackers who they like to stun and be close to the line of scrimmage is going to have to make some big plays. And Swarak is another one who he's had now a sack in each of the last 2 games, who didn't play last time. He's going to be important. We know about Kesner. Guys like Gonzalez and Wilmer, who have been big-time players for them at the linebacker spot. But you have Saya, Fenton. This defense also has a bunch of guys, and Turlau is another one who's a guy they like to use in pressure situations. So this is another defense that has a bunch of guys who can make plays for you. They have forced a bunch of turnovers this season, but they're going to have to win the turnover battle in this one, and limiting Daniel Picard the best they can and forcing other players to make big plays has got to be the scheme, in my opinion. For Pleasantville, though, I got to say this. We talked about Rye back then, didn't have the players, and they're playing much better football. Pleasantville, since the Rye game, Mars, has also played tremendous football, and that's at each spot of the field, offensively, defensively, and special teams. And they won 42-14 versus Lakeland. It's their third straight season going to the section title, and I'll give Pleasantville the kudos right here and now. Over the last 3 years, they have proven to be one of the top 3 programs in Section 1 with the amount of wins that they've had. And so they deserve a lot of credit, the kids, the coaches. And this offense has also scored 30-plus points in 6 straight games, Mars. And when they played Rye, they did have over 300 total yards, only 122 rushing, and 184 yards passing. So they tried to take away Daniel, and you can only do that for so long, even though he had a long touchdown run. But it was the other guys who made big plays in key moments that was the difference in the game. And that's guys like, again, Coleman, who was tremendous. You got guys like McPhee, who had a big touchdown reception, McDermott, and Aiden Picard, who was completing over 60% of his passes this year with 12 touchdowns, 6 INTs. I think half of those INTs came versus Rye, right? So, like, you just got to protect the football. And we know about Daniel. He has over 1,000 yards rushing, Mars, 457 yards receiving, and 23 touchdowns. I'm expecting, again, you don't have to say, I'm expecting a heavy dose of Daniel Picard in some wildcat action, in some receiver action. They're going to test to see if you could take him away. But if they do, if they're bailing out to slow him down, some of these other guys are going to have to be big, especially up front. Defensively, they've allowed 14 or less points in 5 straight games. And I thought versus Rye, the secondary was tremendous. They did a really good job. They forced 3 INTs. They had 4 turnovers total. This is a defense, Mars, forced 22 turnovers this year. This is a defense that gets after the football. They've also had 9 sacks. But they have to be stronger against the run. And that's going to be a big thing. They've been strong all year long. Can they handle some of these condensed formations that Rye does and some of these isolated blocks? But this is another defense overall that's been tremendous. With Horrigan and Sindow, we know they get the most limelight at the linebacker spot, but Dundee, Hudzinski, Picard on the back end, McDermott, and even these defensive linemen, which are not a lot of guys. You won't know them by just their names, but when you put on the pads and they're out there, they have improved vastly. This is, again, if they can slow down the run game and get kind of Ryan to more of the spread stuff and generate some pressures like they really can do, and they have 9 sacks on the season, that's where those turnovers come. Thoughts on this game, Mars, before I go into a little bit of offense?
Well, it was a battle last time these two teams have faced each other, and it was the game of the week that week, and is going to be, I think, the game of the week again for the Section 1 title, but just because you have well-even team, like 2 teams that are very, very close to their skill level and their ability, and obviously coaching has really been pushing these teams to their highest extent. And I feel like overall, it's a game for fans out there that are looking to enjoy a battle. It's going to be enjoyable, but for both these squads, there is some fighting, there's some inner hatred, there's some toughness going on, and I think this is going to be a kind of a matchup for the weekend. I feel like a lot of people are going to want to come and watch that game because of the fact that you have 2 teams that are just itching to prove that this is their class in a way. So I think that's kind of the key thing. You have Rye coming down from A, Pleasantville really controlling B for the past 2 seasons and even this year. So it's just for 3 years they've kind of been winning. So it's just now the question is going to be who's going to make the least amount of mistakes going into this title.
All right, Mars, bring up play number 3. And again, I'm going to be talking about both offenses and pointing out some I think important things heading into this game. In this one, and I'm going to start with Rye. And one thing that they did, I thought, pretty well versus Pleasantville was getting these condensed formations like you see right here, Mars, are running the football. And Pleasantville likes to blitz their linebackers. They like to, I think, play in space more than anything. But this is a pretty strong run defense. And Rye was able to move the ball, running the ball with some power. And the really big thing is make sure you're getting a body on these linebackers. That's going to be the big thing. So you're going to see one of the linebackers is creeping up, going to try to blitz through the B gap. They end up running away from that blitz, right? So it's a predetermined blitz, and they're running away from it. And you can see on these lines, they're going to get a body on a body here. And watch the strength of Rye to try to get some movement up front. And you're going to see they do a good job creating that. Now the backside, you can look backside that fullback. And once they seal off that backside right there, now it's a one-on-one between the running back and corner. And that's where it makes things difficult. And Luliano, I think, had a really strong game versus Pleasantville. He makes the guy miss. And this is the kind of those chunk plays. And this is just one example. But they found a lot of success with these condensed formations and running with some ISO blocking and some power pulling going on. And I think that Rye is going to try to go back to the well here on some of that stuff. Now, the next thing is in the spread stuff. Right, so when they run the ball, and then the other side is running some of the spread stuff, whether it's trips, whether it's empty. And I do think, again, to avoid Pleasantville, especially love blitzing internally, is to get the quarterback on the move. And you're going to see they're going to be rolling out. And I do think where A.J. Miller has really improved on as the season's gone along is making correct reads. You can see the route combination here. So he's going to be rolling to his right. And once you see him get towards the edge, and I do like how they went empty to try to get an extra blocker out on the edge there. But you're going to see is he's reading this coverage. And they actually do a good job on the out, and they have now two guys on the corner. So he's really waiting for their tight end in Kesner to get open. And he's such an important guy there. So I love how he reads the defender in front of him, actually stops. He doesn't keep running. And the defender kind of loses it. And A.J. Miller sees that, and he hits him right on the dot. And these are the kind of plays that he's going to have to make. I thought at times, especially versus Pleasantville, he tried to force things down the field that weren't there and led to turnovers. But this is the smart read. He throws a nice ball here. It gets the completion. Now we go to 11 personnel, right? You got one running back, one tight end. You got two receivers to the far side, one receiver down here. And you're going to see this play, when they start getting into play action, into some motion stuff, is also pretty deadly for Rye. They're going to motion this guy in, almost act as a blocker. They're going to run a deep drag, a corner route, and a post on the backside. Here comes the motion. The running back's going to do a quick out. Now, he could throw that quick out right there, but this is where A.J. Miller, he loves going deep. And when you give him a clean pocket, right, you can see he could throw the quick out, but when he gets a clean pocket like this, Mars, that's where you can really see him bombs away. And he sees there's no safety over the middle. He's going to attack the post. And he trusts his receivers to win this. But look at that ball, Mars. 40-plus yard throw on the dot leads to that long touchdown. And when they can create that balance of running the ball, play action, and then some of those deep shots, that's where things get deadly. But next I want to go to Pleasantville. And I know I love talking about Pleasantville defense. Let's talk Pleasantville offense, Mars. And last time they played Rye, I saw something I never saw before. When Daniel was out at wide receiver at times, they would not just go 2-on-1. They would go 3-on-1. And they were just betting that, hey, you know what? We are not going to let Daniel beat us. You're going to have to throw it to somebody else. You're going to have to win a 1-on-1 somewhere else. And you can see Daniel's out here. They're actually going to jam him and do a late rush. And then you have a corner and a safety to his side. So this is a pretty strong indication that we probably can't go this way. So we got to attack somewhere else. And when you get so many people on one side, it means you're going to be in man coverage on other guys. And this is an example that Eric Coleman, who I thought had a very strong game last time, has to win these matchups for Pleasantville. And in this game, he did. Question is, can he do it again? He's going to fake a quick slant and go deep on the route. And as the play runs, he does a really good job off the line of scrimmage as the play runs. And you got to give a lot of credit to Aiden Picard. Really good job blocking, holding up, and delivers a nice ball there, leading to a big chunk play. And that's going to be so important in this game, is to win those one-on-one matchups when they're there. As we go to the next play, again, you see Daniel out here on the bottom, and you got two guys. corner in his face, safety over the top. And now you got more guys near the line of scrimmage because Rye does like to bring pressure. But when that occurs, what does that mean? It means you get some man coverage. And you can see kind of how things are set up here. And now other guys got to win some one-on-one matchups. And against Rye, that was the difference. And you're going to see the tight end who gets jammed up at the line of scrimmage does a really good job. He's going to fight over. He's got to do a nice drag in front of the safety. And he does a nice job fighting through the contact. And look at the ball placement when Aiden throws this one. And what a good job of concentration by the tight end. Look at him get off. Look at the ball right there, Mars. Look at him look it in, leading to another touchdown. And that was the big difference, in my opinion. It was an evenly matched game. And it was the one-on-ones that weren't Daniel. And we know how special Daniel is, but it was the one-on-ones without Daniel. To me, that was the spark. And now the way to close the deal is you're going to see this. We've seen it every championship. We've seen it every season the last 2 years is this wildcat with Daniel Picard. And they put him in the backfield, and they want to run the ball with him. And they get these extra backs, full backs, these H-backs, and they're going to do some gap blocking. So they're going to take a step into a gap, block the guy right there, kind of stretch your defense horizontally. And Rye likes to put a lot of guys near the line of scrimmage. So if you can get by that initial surge up front, you can make some plays here. And that's what happens right here. Offensive line does a solid job. Look at the backside of this offensive line, kind of washed down that D lineman trying to go through the gap there. And Daniel can see those holes. So the offensive line holds up on that surge, opens up a lane backside. Daniel takes it. And now one-on-one in the secondary, Mars. There isn't anyone in Section 1 that's going to have a lot of success attacking Daniel like this. So he makes that guy miss, and it's sayonara. The magician does it again.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. Well, Mars, we also did a poll out for this game. 60% had Rye winning this game, Mars, pulling off the upset. I got to say, I've been tossing and turning on this game all day. And everyone knows I picked Rye last time. And I heard a little birdie tell me that Pleasantville did not take too kind to that. And they proved me wrong. And it's hard to go against Pleasantville with both the experience that they have in sectional title games and the special players that they have like Daniel Picard. And this defense as a whole has been tremendous for a couple of years. But this team as a whole has really raised its level since playing Rye. Now, Rye is returning a bunch of guys. Rye is also playing at a much higher level. To me, this is a coin toss game. I really don't again, everyone thinks that because Rye's getting the guys back, they're going to win. But Pleasantville's played improved football. I think people are mad to go against Pleasantville. But Mars, I guess you got to call me a madman. I'm going with Rye.
Oh, boy.
Any thoughts, Mars? I know you're not picking the game, but do you have any final thoughts on kind of what each team's got to do?
No, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious at this point. I feel like it's really about limiting the turnovers. I think both sides offensively have been very impressive, and I think that was really what set the difference between how Rye and Pleasantville played last time. I feel like A.J. Miller had struggled in the last game against Pleasantville. Defense for Pleasantville really showed up and caused them to force some turnovers and gave the offense more ability to be on the field and make some plays. And when you get Daniel Picard more and more chances, I mean, that's a recipe for disaster, right? I think that's kind of the issue. So I feel like it's really going to be about which team makes the least amount of mistakes. I think the turnover differential is going to be the biggest indicator of who wins the game overall. So I think it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a fight. And I think it's going to be, it's going to be an interesting one for sure.
It hurts because I actually really like watching both these teams play. I think these are two teams that have vastly improved since their last meeting. I have a lot of respect for Pleasantville, but I got to double down, Mars. I got to double down. All right, let's go to the last game, the AA game. Carmel at Arlington. Carmel's 8-1. Arlington is 10-0. This is a rematch of the September 14th game where Arlington won 55-18. And just talking about Arlington overall, Mars, I think this is their potential first section title game. If they can win this. They went to the section title game a couple years ago, but if they win, it'll be their first section title game victory, which could be historic. And I do think this is what the culmination of everything has been about. I do feel there's going to be a lot of pressure on Arlington's coaches and players, because if it's not now, like when, right? So like that's what it kind of feels like. For Carmel, this is their third straight section title appearance. They've won back-to-back, and teams in AA have not done that since Marischal. So this has also been a tremendous moment for them, with their coaching staff, with all the change that happened at the head coaching spot with Todd Kay, we know, with Tom Dono. And I got to say this overall about Carmel. It feels like it's a bastion for former Mahopac coaches to go and win and appear in section title games. We've had multiple former coaches at Mahopac go to Carmel and win. It's like the weirdest thing we've ever seen, but that's what's kind of been the case. And have another opportunity, the former head coach of Mahopac has an opportunity to win at Carmel. Wild, absolutely wild.
I mean, if you took a poll in the past maybe 5-ish years and ask how many Mahopac coaches had migrated to Carmel and have won section titles,
and some have stayed. And
yeah, someone stayed. I mean, what are you talking about? Like 6 coaches that were from the rival school, rival Carmel, and win a second title. I mean,
and we say that because we are Mahopac alum. So the Carmel Mahopac thing used to be ugly for a long time. I know they haven't played each other in a few years. It used to be an ugly rivalry for a long time. But now I've also coached at Carmel and won. So, it's such a weird time. That's all I'll say. But let's get to the actual game. And starting with Arlington, Mars, they won 42-21 versus John Jay East Fishkill last week. And that was a big rivalry game to them. And, they didn't play their best game, especially in the first half. Had penalties, had the fumbled QB sneak at the end of the half. But, boy, they can really turn it on quickly. And this offense have scored 30-plus points in each game this season. This has been a dynamic offense. Last time they played Carmel, they had over 600 yards of total offense and 300 yards rushing. But they're missing a key player. And again, I don't know his status, but Davenport I have not seen play the last game. And he's a huge part of this offense running the football at the running back spot. And he was a great compliment to their quarterback in Resigno, who's been absolutely tremendous. And he had to really pick up the load this past week, both passing and running the ball. He's had over 1,500 yards passing, 19 touchdowns, only 2 INTs, and has also rushed for 945 yards and another 13 touchdowns on the ground. Now, obviously, a key component is this offensive line, led by Coverly, having to move the big boys up front in Carmel. And I do think where they're really going to attack is it's really tough to attack the internal from like the guard-to-guard spot of this Carmel defense. They're going to have to attack the C-gaps. That's going to be a big part, but they have to run the football, and I'm expecting to see a lot of Resigno runs because of the injuries at quarterback. But they do have a couple running backs in DeGusto and Russo who can spell some of these carries, and they're going to have to do it. And another thing is you're going to see a bunch of RPO action or play action, and I do think they're going to have to throw out of condensed formations because there's 2 ways you want to attack Carmel, right? You want to try to spread them and run it, right, getting them into their dime looks and running the football. And when they get into kind of those when they have those edge players coming.
We're good. Let's go back to streaming again. It's back on. It was just like stopped for a second.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys. We had a little bit of a bug here. Mars, where did I leave off before this thing crashed?
I mean, you were obviously talking about, like, I think you were getting onto the Arlington defense.
Yeah. So getting back to Arlington's defense, obviously the number one thing is stopping the run. That's going to be a huge part of this Carmel offense. They run the ball very well, and stopping the run with your linebackers and defensive linemen trying to generate negative plays is going to be absolutely important. And another big thing is these quarterback rollouts, which has been a big aspect of this Carmel offense that you've seen the last couple of weeks with Nunez, is getting him off of play action, getting him towards the edge. So your edge defender's got to be very smart. You can't just crash down all the time. And Carmel really took advantage of that last week. Arlington's got to be much better because, you know what, Carmel did have success running the ball versus Arlington in their first matchup. And some of the screen games and play action really did work. So, Arlington's also got to look back defensively. There were some things that they have to correct on the defensive side of the ball. And Finn, McGann, Lavello, these are guys who can make some big plays for this defense. Stopping the run has to be the top priority. Now let's go to Carmel. And they won 35-6 versus Suffern Mars. Last time they played Arlington, it wasn't just that they lost their coach had a lot of turmoil. They also were missing guys like Risley and Santiago. So those are two key football players that you need in this kind of game. And offensively, they have 6 games where they have rushed for over 200 yards as a team, and they have 3 players with over 300 yards total running the football. And that's their running back, Cash Werlu, who has over 1,000 yards rushing and 8 touchdowns. You have Venables, who has over 500 yards rushing and 9 touchdowns. So those two guys have been absolutely tremendous. And then their quarterback in Nunez, who's done a really solid job in rollout action and some of the play action in these last couple weeks. That's been really big for this offense. This offensive line has really mauled people up front. Now they're going up against a very big front in Arlington, but even though they're very big, I do think they can create some lanes for guys like Werlu to run through. Another thing too is that off the play action, we've now seen the last couple of weeks, Abel and Santiago have really picked things up in the passing game. So anticipate some of the play action to them as they go against Arlington. Last time they did rush for about 180 yards versus Arlington last time, Mars. So they did have success running the football, and look for them to, again, attack that as well. Defensively, listen, since the Arlington game, which was a really ugly defensive performance, which I called out, this defense has really stepped up. They've allowed 7 or less points, 6 out of the last 7 games. And I think a really important aspect in this one is disguising some of their pressures. 2 things. Number one, disguising some of their pressures. And the second thing is generating a negative play. That's going to be so important. If they can get Arlington into second, third, and long, that's where Carmel really finds its groove. They have 26 sacks this season, Mars, is because they make it really hard on you on first down when you try to run. And then this defense can now start to generate some of their pressures, which has caused a lot of issues for offenses. So interested to see how they handle it, disguising some of their pressures, generating kind of that negative play. Obviously, Resigno is going to be the key component here, but they have some receivers that you got to play strong man-to-man on because they are game breakers. And we saw that in the last time they played Carmel, and it'll be that again. And this defense is led by Risley. I mean, he's kind of the brain of the operation, but the guy Forrester in the middle, those the big D tackles are hard to move up the gut, and it allows these D ends like Hibbert to really make some plays off the edge. And another guy who deserves a lot of credit is their other linebacker who's had to step in. This defense has had a bunch of injury at the linebacker spot, and I think it's Pyle is their linebacker who he stepped in and was a defensive end and has done a nice job. So he deserves a lot of credit. He's going to have to be huge in this rush attack, especially with Resigno running the football. But if they can get these negative plays, then you could see guys like Santiago, Venables coming off the edge, and even Abel is going to have to be so important on some of this RPO quick game to try to cover some of these guys. Mars, thoughts on this game, and then we'll go into our final play before we do the game pick.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is obviously turning more into, I guess you would say, a rivalry game. I know last year there was a lot of tough talk and everything going on, and Carmel kind of had Arlington's number, and then this year kind of flipped, where Arlington kind of had Carmel's number. So it's kind of fitting that these two teams would match up again in the section final, especially with all the craziness that's happened with Carmel's season. I think that's going to be the big thing that I'm looking out for. But the fact that, Arlington, I feel like their offensive line has really been dominating, and you have a lot of skill players at Arlington that have been really impressive. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Carmel reacts to kind of like the rematch that they've had against Arlington. I mean, I know last time it was kind of a blowout, but now it's like, how do they kind of bring themselves back into how they've been playing recently? I feel like Carmel's been playing a lot better. So the fact that that's been the case and they've been running the ball very well, I feel like it's going to be a question to see, what type of Carmel team do we face against this Arlington, front and in this rematch for the section championship.
All right, Mars, the final one. Let's go to play number 2.
I think I fixed your mic, dude.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but it sounds like you're in the back rooms.
I don't know what's going on, man.
Reset your mic. Yeah.
Technology, baby.
Yeah, I love technology, man.
How about now?
It's still kind of like it a little bit, but it was a little bit better than before.
Yeah, so we're going to have to go through it.
Yeah.
All right, I apologize, guys. Technology is not working for whatever reason, but we'll go through my muzzled voice through these plays. And the first thing I want to talk about is Carmel's defense. And when you get into kind of two backs where there's, again, 20 personnel, 21, 11 personnel, you're going to see loaded boxes. Carmel likes to generate negative plays using their front and using some of these edge defenders or force defenders, if you want to call them, close to the line of scrimmage because they like to send them off the edge. And this is an example of that. Now, the big thing is, again, you got two backs. You're going to see around 8 guys in the box within 6 to 7 yards of the line of scrimmage. So running the ball is going to be pretty difficult, but teams try to do it anyway. And the big guy you got to be worried of is this big man in the middle, in Forrester, number 66. And you're going to see this offensive play. They're going to try to get some down blocks, and it's important. Well, Carmel does a good job on the play side. You don't get a lot of movement, and on the back side, they do a good job of chasing. So you're going to see, again, trying to get down blocks, trying to pull a lineman. They're going to be sending the guy off the edge here, so they're going to try to kick him out with that block. But you're going to see, watch this big man, number 66, at the snap of the ball. Look how fast he gets off. This is a 6'4" kid getting off the line of scrimmage. So at the snap of the ball, you see that explosion right there. He's going to chase that force defender coming off the edge. He's going to make that blocker miss. And that's the combination there where you create that negative play in the run game. Doing a good job of reading and chasing linemen. If you're coming off the edge, doing a good job of squeezing it down, not overrunning it. You saw the linebackers flowing. They create a lot of tough chances to run the football. You got to hit the hole fast and hit the hole hard, and you got to cut off some of these big linemen. And when they get you in second and third and long, that's where this defense really feasts on. When we get to that second play, you're going to see they got a tight end here, one back there, and 11 personnel, and they're going to have one of these force defenders coming. They're either sending 2 or 1, but most of the time, somebody's coming. And this time, they're going to send 1 right here. And you can see the defensive setup, they're going to be playing a bunch of man. But what they're going to do is they're going to test your quarterback on where he wants to go with the football and if this offensive line can hold up long enough for him to make the throw. Because these guys can really get after you. So they're playing man coverage here. Here comes the defense. You see a really good job by the DN creating that initial pressure there right off the tackle using his speed. Quarterback has to step up, but they have a quarterback and they have a linebacker who's spying the quarterback, and this defensive line does a really good job of pushing the internal of this offensive line. So he steps up, and it's going to lead to a big sack right here. And that's what they do. If they can get you into second and long, third and long because they're slowing down the run game, now this defense can really swarm, and they have, again, 26 sacks. So some of the teams have decided, we can roll out, get him into trips, and this is an example of that. You can see one of the force defenders standing on the line. He's going to be coming off the edge. The offense is actually going to roll away from this, right? So they got trips to the far end. You're going to see the route combination here where you got a quick out by the outside receiver, a corner route, and then the number 3 is going to be doing kind of an out as well, but he's going to kind of stop. It's almost like a stick pattern. And the quarterback's going to roll towards that way. But the quarterback's got to make smart decisions. And you can see they have someone who's pretty much acting like a spy when the quarterback rolls. And the quarterback, when he gets to the outside there, he's got to make a quick decision here. Does he throw to the flat guy or does he hold on for the corner? And because the corner route, because the corner is kind of in between, he's playing off, he's sitting in between, and the quarterback's thinking, okay, maybe I can fit it over him into that corner route. But the out route's open, right? So they really test your discipline because of all the pressure on where you're going to go with the football. He ends up going to the corner, leads to the INT, probably should have went to the out. But that's what pressure does to you, is it makes you make, unfortunately, some quick decisions and probably some poor decisions. And that's what Carmel, if they could slow down the run on Arlington, get them into long down passing situations, they could start making some plays on the football. But now I want to go to Arlington and their offense. And we saw this last week, missing their star running back. They like to go into 12 personnel. They'll bring in 2 tight ends. They like to go into 11 personnel. And Racino really acts as a pseudo running back because of his strength and his speed. And this is, again, they got 2 tight ends. They're pretty much a tackle over with a tight end there. And this extra running back is looking like another lineman, right? Look at the size there. And John Jay's going to be trying to come off the edge. And this is with just power football, right? And the big thing is getting a body on a body and generating some movement at the point of attack. And I do think against Carmel, they're going to have to attack these C gaps. And they're going to have to get those down blocks right there. Look at the guard pulling across. You got to get a body on body, kick out some of these DNs, kick out some of these force guys coming off the edge, and run underneath it. And if they can get a body on body and generate some movement at the point of attack, it'll create some lanes. And that's just where Arlington wants to attack. Hitting kind of those C gaps there, getting Resigno to the second level because he's very dangerous as a runner. When we get to the next play, the next important concept too is you see again condensed formation, 21 personnel, 2 backs, 1 tight end, throwing out of condensed formations. Because when Arlington comes out like this, there's a heavy emphasis on the run. And so the ability to throw out of this is going to be also very important. So they're going to fake a run here and they're going to run a slant and a post with these 2 receivers. And because teams are really hell-bent on stopping the run, you're going to have to play some man coverage. And the safety you can see is close to the box, which means there might be space. But this is where Racino has gotten better. At the snap of the ball, you can see a nice fake, and he'll normally just throw that slant, right? He's not really going to read this. He's gotten much better at this. He'll try to throw the slant, but the corner is actually in a pretty good position there. So he sees all that open space behind that second defender, and that's a post. No safety over the top. Nice ball thrown, good route, and it's off to the races. Finally, the last play, Mars, and this is against against Carmel, 11 personnel. And you can see, when they get into the kind of those dime packages, you see those 2 edge guys close to the line of scrimmage, 1 inside backer. How are you going to defend against these smokes and these outside pressures, right? Are you going to do the quick game? Are you going to roll out towards it? Are you going to run the ball? And I do think there's multiple ways you can. You can try to run the ball over the C gap. With your quarterback, you can do rollouts, but you got to be smart with the football and take what the defense gives you. Right? In this particular scenario, he's going to roll out to the 2 receiver side to his left. Running back does a good job of blocking this outside heat, and he gets to the outside of it, which is really important. Now, what's going to be big in this one, and the receiver did a good job on this particular play, throwing a really nice ball, but look at all that space out there, Mars. I mean, if there's nothing there initially, I'll take my chances one-on-one with 20 yards of space and Resigno and the defender. But I do like he keeps his eyes down the field. He actually sees his receiver does a good job fighting across the field here when he gets to the outside. And he's going to deliver a nice ball. And he does a really good ball rolling out. And it's going to lead to a really nice play. Touchdown.
Yeah.
All right, Mars. Who do you got in this game? We did a poll, Mars. 86% have Arlington in this one.
So when I'm looking at this tape, and I feel like this is obviously going to be one of those matchups where it's a rivalry game. People are going to be battling. I feel like it's been really been a rivalry for the past roughly 3 seasons, and I feel like this has kind of been the matchup that I've been looking forward to seeing at some point because I knew that Carmel was going to kind of rebound. I knew that Arlington was already on a roll, so I had a feeling this was going to happen. And I feel like when you look at both these teams, their best traits are going to be obviously running the football. And I'm looking at which of these two has the ability to make the most plays out of what they do best. And I think that Arlington has the size up front that can move anybody around, and I think that they have the weapons in the passing game that they can really open up and make some big plays. And Carmel, with all the adversity they've faced throughout the year, they've clawed their way back, and it tells you that they have this type of toughness that is really hard to come by. And they've been, and I said this about Pleasantville, I said this about Somers, they've been in the big game scenarios multiple times in a row now. Like all 3 of those programs have made it to the section title 3 years in a row. So they've all been there before, and they have felt the pressure. Arlington, on the other hand, hasn't been there as often. So this is a big pressure moment. And this almost seems like you said before that if you can't win with this team, how can you win? Right? That's kind of like one of that moments because it feels like they're the heavy favorite to win this game. And I think I'm also going to be on board. I'm going to go with Arlington to win the game because of the fact I feel like everything's going well. They have a very, very good team with a lot of skilled guys and a lot of playmakers on both offense and defense that can make big plays. The offensive line it's probably the most dominant in Section 1, and they have been moving people around and just been opening up lanes for whoever wants to run the ball. But Resigno has really come into his own as a balanced quarterback and runner. So I feel like he is just a dangerous player as well. And just have a lot of guys in the offensive end that can really make big plays. But the offensive line has been impressive for Arlington. So I'm going to go with Arlington here.
Yeah, I got to say this. It's not going to be a 55-18 game. I would be shocked. That would be the most shocking thing to me. This game, I think, will be close. And I do think all the pressure is on Arlington because it feels like you just said, if we can't win now, when? Right? They have the team, and I know they have big injury there with potentially Davenport, who is a key player for them. But they still have enough guns. And I'll say this about Carmel. Experience is a huge part of it. I think they're going to be extra motivated. How can you not be? It's a section title game. But what I do think is if they can generate some turnovers here, and this game is in the low 20s, I think Carmel has a real chance to win this football game. If this is a shootout, I don't think Carmel has a lot of opportunity here. But if they can keep this in the low 20s, and that's by limiting big plays, I think they have a real chance. Running the football is going to be key. Limiting possessions that Arlington has is going to be massive. But with all that said, I am going to go with Arlington. I agree with you, Mars. I just feel like it's gotta be this year for Arlington. It just feels like it. And I feel like they're motivated, feel like they're focused, and Resigno is playing at an extremely high level, and that has to carry on into this game for them to win. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much. This was our last show of the year. We appreciate you guys, as always, tuning in like you've done all year long. I want to wish a good luck to all the teams out there for the Section 1 championship. This is such a big game for the winners and even for the losers. Just to get to this point is a really good feat that you got there. But cherish this moment. Give everything you have. Good luck to those teams. I'm actually going to be attending. We have a media pass, Mars. So going to actually be attending. I'm going to try to go both days, but most likely going to be there Saturday. But I will be watching all of them, whether I'm there in person or not. But really excited, Mars. Any last words before we check out? This is not our last bit of coverage even after the game. We're going to be doing postseason awards and all-star teams we're trying to do this year. But any last-minute thoughts, Mars, before we check out?
No, I feel like it was a great season overall, guys. And, like I said before, I think I said it throughout the season, every like and subscribe, and it really does go a long way for us. Obviously, me and Frank have been doing this for the past few years, and we've been doing this really just because we love the game and we want to kind of give kids their time in the spotlight that a lot of times people don't really cover them. So, this is kind of our homage to Section 1, which we were both players and we both coached in this section. So that was kind of like our goal with this. And it really is a good thing to see when people do share out our videos or do share out our, give us a like and subscribe and stuff. So I do appreciate that, guys. Make sure you do hit that thumbs up and subscribe, as well as share our content around. I really do appreciate all the support. I know Frank is the same way, but it was a lot of fun this year, and I'm looking forward to seeing the game this weekend and seeing who pulls away and is crowned the champ of Section 1.
Absolutely. And with that, guys, we're going to sign off. Again, good luck to all the teams out there and the players, and we'll see you all very soon.